It was the kind of snow that seemed to swallow the world whole. The flakes were fat and relentless, blurring the highway lines into a hazy white ribbon. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel, the little car shuddering with each gust of wind. What should have been a leisurely 6-hour drive was turning into an epic test of endurance. My wife, Clara, was turning 32. Her birthday always felt like a battle against the elements. Born in late January, her celebrations were constantly threatened by the unpredictable fury of a Midwest winter. This year, I was determined to make it different. I'd hatched a plan, a surprise that I hoped would melt away the winter blues and the slight distance that had crept into our lives lately. Clara had mentioned wanting to spend her birthday weekend with her sister, Emily, who lived a few towns over. They had some fancy spa day planned, cucumber facials and hot stone massages, the whole shebang. I'd played along, telling Clara that work was too crazy, that I couldn't possibly get away. The truth was, I'd already booked Friday off. My plan was to drive to Emily's, armed with Clara's favorite Black Forest cake from that little bakery downtown, and sweep her off her feet for a surprise birthday dinner at that new Italian place she'd been dying to try. I'd even packed her favorite dress, the emerald green one that made her eyes sparkle, and those ridiculous heels she only wore on special occasions. I envisioned her face, the shock and then the pure, unadulterated joy. That image was my fuel as the snow raged on. Thursday night, the weather forecast took a turn for the worse. Winter storm warning. 6 to 10 inches of snow expected, and not just in one place. The warning blanketed 3 states, including my entire route. Any sane person would have postponed the trip. But I'm not always known for my sanity, especially where Clara is concerned. Part of it was stubbornness, a refusal to let the weather dictate my plans. Part of it was that damn restaurant reservation, secured after weeks of begging and pleading with the maitre d'. But mostly it was the thought of Clara's smile. So at 7 a.m. on Friday I set off. The cheerful 6-hour estimate quickly dissolved into a 9-hour ordeal. The snow intensified, reducing visibility to near zero. I was practically driving blind, following the faint red glow of the taillights ahead. There were accidents, multiple ones, that snarled traffic into a glacial crawl. I stopped twice for coffee, desperate to keep the weariness at bay. Each mile was a battle against the elements and the nagging voice in my head questioning my sanity. But with every rotation of the tires, I pictured Clara's surprise, her laughter, the way she'd throw her arms around me. Finally, around 4 p.m., I reached Emily's neighborhood. The streets were a mess. The plows hadn't made it through yet. I had to park a block away and trudge through ankle-deep snow, the cake box clutched in my freezing hands. By the time I reached Emily's front door, my jeans were soaked to the knees, and my teeth were chattering. The door was unlocked. I could hear voices inside, Emily and Clara, their laughter echoing from the kitchen. I was about to announce my arrival, to yell a cheerful surprise, when I froze. Clara was speaking. "Mark's being impossible," she was saying. "My name." My heart sank a little. Emily replied, her voice muffled. "Still working late?" "Oh, he texted earlier." Clara's voice was clear now. "Said he's swamped. Probably glued to that stupid computer game again." I stood there in the entryway, the cake box a lead weight in my hands. It wasn't the usual playful eye roll about my gaming hobby. There was a sharp edge to her voice, a dismissiveness that made my stomach clench. "Well, at least he's not here to ruin your birthday weekend," Emily said. I almost stepped in then, to make my presence known. I wished to God I had, but something held me back, a morbid curiosity, a dreadful premonition. "God, can you imagine?" Clara laughed, a light, brittle sound. "He'd insist on coming to dinner with us tonight, then launch into those boring stories he always tells. And then he'd get that pathetic puppy dog look when I want to go out tomorrow without him." Each word was a tiny dagger twisting in my chest. I stood there, holding that ridiculous cake, the snow melting into little puddles around my shoes, listening to my wife mock me to her sister. "Well, at least he's out of the way," Emily offered. "The roads are a disaster. Ben got stuck on the highway for hours." There was a pause. a beat of silence that stretched into an eternity. Then Clara spoke, and the words hit me like a physical blow. I swear, I almost wish he'd just crashed the car. We could really use the insurance money. I must have made some sound, a gasp, a choked sob, because they both went silent. For a moment I thought I'd been caught. But then Emily responded, her voice light and casual. Or at least a few months of peace and quiet. They both laughed, actual laughter, at the thought of my death or at least my prolonged absence. I don't remember making a conscious decision. My feet just moved on their own. I walked into the kitchen, placed the cake box on the counter with a soft thud, and turned around. Their faces, I've never seen someone's complexion change so dramatically. All the color just drained away, leaving them pale and ghostly. Clara's eyes widened, her mouth forming a silent "Oh, Mark," she whispered, but I didn't stop. I turned and walked back out the door, back through the snow, back to my car. I sat there for what felt like hours, the engine running, the heater blasting, but the cold had seeped into my bones. My phone was buzzing incessantly. 17 missed calls, 38 text messages. I ignored them all. I drove to the nearest motel, a dingy place on the edge of town. $80 for a room that smelled like stale cigarettes and regret. I turned off my phone and stared at the ceiling until the first hint of dawn. When I finally dared to turn my phone back on, the numbers had escalated. 63 texts, 29 missed calls. I scrolled through them numbly, a mix of confusion, anger, and what sounded like panic. I couldn't bring myself to respond. Instead, I texted my best friend, Liam. Something happened with Clara. Need a place to crash for a few days. Liam, being the solid, dependable friend he'd always been, replied instantly. Doors open. Fridge is stocked with beer. I drove the 9 hours back home. The landscape transformed from a winter wonderland to a bleak, desolate reminder of my shattered illusions. I packed 3 suitcases of clothes, grabbed my essential documents from the fireproof box, and left. Clara wasn't there. She was still at Emily's. Felt surreal, like walking out of a movie set. That was 3 days ago. 3 days of silence, of avoiding Clara's calls and texts. She's tried everything, calling from different numbers, leaving voicemails that ranged from tearful pleas to furious demands. She even showed up at my office yesterday. I wasn't there. I'd called in sick. Today, I went to the bank. I moved half of our joint savings into a new account in my name only. I froze our joint credit cards. I changed all my passwords. I told my boss I needed to work remotely for a week, citing a vague family emergency. It's all very methodical, this dismantling of my life, which is strange because inside, I feel like I'm falling. Free falling into a dark, bottomless pit. The words keep replaying in my head. I almost wish he'd just crashed the car. We could really use the insurance money. How could she say that? About someone she supposedly loved? And the laughter, that casual, dismissive laughter, it haunts me. Worse, there's this creeping suspicion that this isn't the first time she said something like this. Just the first time I've been unfortunate enough, or fortunate enough to hear it. Our friends have started reaching out. Apparently, Clara is telling everyone we had a misunderstanding, that I'm overreacting, the classic gaslighting maneuver. One mutual friend, bless her heart, texted, "Whatever happened, I'm sure you guys can work through it," without even asking for my side of the story. I haven't told anyone the full extent of what I heard. Not even Liam. He's been a rock, though, providing a safe haven, a listening ear, and an endless supply of beer. Last night, I finally caved and read some of Clara's texts. They follow a predictable, almost pathetic pattern. Confusion. Where did you go? Why did you leave? Defensiveness. It was just a joke. You weren't supposed to hear that. Anger. You're being ridiculous. Answer your damn phone. Manipulation. I'm worried about you. Please, just let me know you're okay. Threats. If you don't call me back, I'm calling the police to report you missing. Self-pity. I can't believe you're doing this to me on my birthday weekend. Not one genuine apology. Not 1 ounce of remorse for what she said. After reading those, I blocked her number. I'm not ready to talk to her. Maybe I'll never be. Today, I met with a financial advisor, a guy named Samuel, who a coworker recommended. We spent 2 hours poring over our finances, and I discovered some interesting things, like how Clara has been spending an average of $1,500 a month on online shopping for the past year, or how she'd taken out a store credit card I knew nothing about, with a balance of over $2,000. Samuel helped me devise a plan to untangle our finances as painlessly as possible. It's all perfectly legal, nothing shady, but it means Clara is about to get a rude awakening about her spending habits. The joint account I left untouched has enough to cover this month's mortgage and utilities. After that, we'll see. I'm not trying to leave her destitute, but she needs to understand that actions have consequences. The wild thing is, I still find myself second-guessing my reaction, wondering if I am overreacting. Maybe it was just a joke. But then I remember her tone, the casualness with which she wished me harm, the chilling laughter that followed. And I know, deep in my gut, that I'm not. Liam keeps urging me to talk to her, if only for closure. Maybe he's right, but right now I'm still processing. Still trying to reconcile the woman I thought I knew with the person who could utter those words. Tomorrow marks 4 days of silence from my end. Emily tried to call today. I didn't answer. Then our neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, texted, saying Clara was outside, crying on our front steps, because I changed the garage door code. Part of me feels a pang of guilt. Most of me feels numb. The thing that keeps me up at night isn't even the insurance comment itself. It's the laughter, the easy way they both found humor in the thought of my suffering. Who does that? And how long has she felt this way? I've also been obsessing over the life insurance policy we took out a few years ago. It's not a huge amount, $300,000, but enough to make someone hope their spouse crashes, I guess. I'm calling the insurance company tomorrow to see about changing the beneficiary. I know this is getting long, but writing it all out, it helps. Liam's got a buddy who's a divorce lawyer. I'm meeting him for coffee next week. Not sure if that's where this is heading, but I need to know my options. For anyone wondering what I'm going to do next, I honestly don't know. Part of me wants to vanish, to change my number, move to a different state, start over. But that feels like running away. Another part of me craves confrontation, wants to see her face when I repeat her words back to her, wants her to feel even a fraction of the pain I'm feeling. But mostly, I just want this hollow ache in my chest to disappear. I want to stop seeing her face when I close my eyes. I want to stop hearing those words, that laughter, echoing in my head. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time, keeping my head down, making plans, and letting her stew in the uncertainty of my silence. If there's interest, I'll update as things unfold. Regardless, thanks for listening. Sometimes, the internet is the only place where strangers will just listen, without trying to offer unsolicited advice or fix everything. Still standing, still breathing. Update. Quick recap for anyone just joining this chaotic saga. I drove 9 hours through a blizzard to surprise Clara at her sister Emily's for her birthday. Overheard Clara telling Emily she half wished I'd crash so she could collect the insurance money. Yeah, you read that right. I left the cake, left the house, and have been holed up at my friend Liam's ever since, trying to navigate the emotional and financial wreckage. It's been a week since my last update, 10 days since those words became permanently etched into my brain, playing on repeat like some twisted, never-ending song. They say anger fades. All those self-help podcasts Liam insists on playing in the kitchen claim it does. You're supposed to reach some plateau of clarity, a serene mountaintop where you make wise, rational decisions. I'm still waiting for that to happen. Last Wednesday, day 4 of my self-imposed exile, I woke up with a plan. Not a good plan, not a healthy plan, but a plan that felt necessary. I waited until mid-morning, 9:30 a.m., figuring Clara would be at work by then. Then I drove back to our house. Our house. The words felt foreign in my head. I went with 3 empty suitcases and Liam's pickup truck. a beast of a vehicle that seemed to amplify the gravity of my mission. The house looked the same. Coffee mugs still on the counter, mail piled up by the door. But it felt different, alien, like walking onto a stage set of my life, not the actual lived-in reality. I started in the bedroom. Methodically, I packed all my clothes, except for the ones Clara had picked out for me. Those I left hanging in the closet, like empty husks of a former life. I took my grandmother's watch from the dresser, my journals from the bookshelf, the external hard drive with all our photos. Petty? Maybe, but I paid for the damn hard drive. In the office, I disconnected my gaming setup. Left the desk, we'd bought it together, but took the chair. I'd bought that myself, after Clara complained about the squeaky wheels on the old one. Found our marriage certificate tucked away in the filing cabinet. Took that too. I'm not sure why. Some instinctual urge to reclaim the tangible symbols of us. I moved through the house, systematically erasing my presence. My books, my records, my tools from the garage, even that bizarre metal sculpture I'd bought at an art fair, the one she'd always hated. For hours of carefully, deliberately dismantling my life there. What I didn't take was equally significant. The couch we'd spent 3 weekends agonizing over, the kitchen table where we'd shared countless meals, the bed where we'd slept, fought, made up, made love. I left all our framed photos exactly where they were. Something about seeing my smiling face staring back at her from every wall, every surface, felt right. A stark reminder of what she'd thrown away. Before I left, I did 3 things. Small things, petty things, maybe, but they gave me a sliver of satisfaction. First, I turned the thermostat down to 62 degrees. Clara always complained if it was below 70. Second, I took the light bulb out of the refrigerator. A minor inconvenience, but one that would irritate her every time she went for a late-night snack. Third, I changed the Wi-Fi password to IHOPAHESH's 2023 and unplugged the router. Tiny acts of rebellion, designed to make her feel my absence in 100 small ways before the larger absence hit her. As I locked the door behind me, our neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, was getting her mail. She eyed Liam's truck, overflowing with my belongings, then looked at me, eyebrows raised in that classic suburban way. I just shrugged and said I was taking some things to donate. She didn't buy it. Her eyes said as much, but she nodded and went inside. Midwest politeness. Don't ask uncomfortable questions. Mind your own business. Usually it annoys me. That day I was grateful. Back at Liam's, I unloaded everything into his garage, except for 2 suitcases of clothes and essentials that came inside. He helped without asking questions. Just handed me a beer when we were done and said, "Sometimes, life kicks you in the teeth." Profound, right? But it was exactly what I needed to hear. Thursday was financial day. I met with Samuel again. He'd compiled all our account information and laid it out in a spreadsheet that made my stomach churn. Turns out, Clara had been spending way more than I realized. It wasn't just that store credit card. There were regular cash withdrawals from our joint checking account. $300 here, $500 there. Over $12,000 in the past year that she couldn't account for with receipts or purchases I could verify. Samuel helped me draft a letter, a formal request for financial separation. Not divorce papers, not yet, but a clear statement that I would no longer be responsible for any new debts she incurred. We had it delivered by courier to her workplace. Petty? Maybe. Effective? Definitely. I also canceled our shared streaming accounts and subscription services. Changed the passwords on our cloud storage where we kept important documents. Redirected all my mail to a P.O. box. Small, systematic cuts to our intertwined lives. Friday morning, I finally checked my social media. 17 Facebook messages, 34 Instagram DMs. Even my dormant Twitter account had notifications. People checking in, asking if I was okay, wondering what had happened with Clara. People taking sides, offering unsolicited opinions, all without knowing the full story. I posted one thing, a photo of the half-eaten birthday cake on our kitchen counter. No caption, no context, just the cake. Within an hour, my phone exploded. Friends texting to ask what it meant. Clara called 6 times in 20 minutes. Her best friend, Jill, sent a message asking if I was okay because Clara was really worried. I ignored them all, let them speculate. That afternoon, I met with my boss, Ryan, to explain the situation. I needed some personal time. He was surprisingly understanding. Just asked how much time I needed and if I could still handle the Wilson project remotely. I said I could 2 weeks at least. He didn't pry, just clapped me on the shoulder and said sometimes space was the best way to gain clarity. First decent piece of advice I'd gotten since this whole mess started. Saturday brought the first real confrontation. I was at the grocery store, staring blankly at frozen pizzas, trying to remember which brand Liam preferred, when someone called my name. I turned around to find Emily standing there, shopping basket in hand, face pale, like she'd seen a ghost. She started with the usual script. Clara was worried sick. Everyone was concerned. Wouldn't I please just talk to her? When I didn't respond, her tone shifted. Said I was being childish. Said it was just a joke between sisters. That I was blowing things out of proportion. I finally spoke, my voice low and steady. I asked her point blank if she thought wishing death on your spouse for insurance money was normal sisterly banter. I asked if she'd want her boyfriend to hear her say something like that. I asked if she realized that joke was the culmination of months of Clara's growing contempt, the tip of a very ugly iceberg. She didn't have answers, just stammered something about misunderstandings and context. I put the pizza back, left my half-filled cart in the aisle, and walked out. Petty? Yes. Satisfying? Also yes. Sunday was quiet. Liam had some friends over to watch the game. They all knew something was up, but nobody asked. Just handed me beers and made room for me on the couch. For 3 hours, I almost felt normal. Then Monday hit, and with it, reality. My temporary leave from work began. The house I'd shared with Clara for 5 years was sitting half empty across town, and my phone showed 15 missed calls from her overnight. I finally listened to one voicemail. Her voice sounded different. Scratchy, raw. She said she hadn't been sleeping. Said the house felt wrong without me. Said she'd noticed more and more of my things missing, and it was scaring her. Asked if I was ever coming back, or if I was just ghosting our entire marriage. Something about her word choice, treating our relationship like some Tinder match you can just disappear from, hardened something inside me. I texted Liam that I was going for a drive and ended up parked outside our house, my house, Clara's house, for almost an hour. Her car wasn't there. The porch light was on, even though it was broad daylight, like she'd forgotten to turn it off. The recycling bin at the curb was overflowing with wine bottles. I didn't go in, just sat there, wondering how many mortgage payments I had left, wondering if I should sell it and split the proceeds or try to buy her out, wondering how we'd gone from forever to forensic accounting in 10 days. Tuesday brought another financial surprise. A notification from our credit card company about unusual activity. Clara had gone on a shopping spree, over $2,000 at department stores and boutiques. Retail therapy or deliberate financial sabotage? Either way, I called and reported the card stolen. Had a new one sent to my P.O. box. Another bridge burned. That night, I finally posted something more substantial online. Not about Clara specifically, but a simple status. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same. Vague enough to mean anything, specific enough for those in the know. Clara would see it. Her friends would see it. The narrative was shifting, subtly, from Mark's having a meltdown to something serious happened. Wednesday marked 2 weeks since I'd heard those words in Emily's kitchen. 2 weeks of silence from my end. 2 weeks of increasingly desperate attempts to contact me from Clara's end. I met with a lawyer Liam recommended. Nice guy named Milton. Yes, same name as my financial advisor, which gets confusing fast. He laid out my options. Divorce would be straightforward since we don't have kids, but the house and finances would still be complicated. He suggested a formal separation first, to give us both time to untangle things properly. I agreed, and he drafted the paperwork on the spot. said he could have it served as early as Friday. The ball was rolling now, picking up speed with each passing day of silence. Thursday was when things escalated. I was working remotely from Liam's dining table when the doorbell rang. Liam answered, then came back looking uncomfortable. "Clara's outside," he said, crying, demanding to see you. I sat there, frozen, coffee halfway to my lips, as Liam awkwardly asked if he should send her away or let her in. Neither option felt right. I wasn't ready to see her, wasn't ready to hear whatever excuses she'd concocted. But sending her away felt cruel, like giving her ammunition, proof that I was being unreasonable. So I nodded and Liam let her in. She looked terrible, hair unwashed, eyes red-rimmed, wearing what looked like the same sweater from days ago. She stood in the doorway, staring at me like she couldn't quite believe I was real. I didn't stand, didn't offer her a seat, just waited. She spoke first, her voice thick with unshed tears, asking if I was really having her served with separation papers. Apparently, Milton's assistant had called to verify our address, and she'd pressed until they revealed what the call was about. So much for the element of surprise. I said, "Yes, I am." She asked why I wouldn't talk to her, wouldn't let her explain. Her voice kept catching, like she had to force the words out. I told her there was nothing to explain. I heard what I heard. She said it wasn't what I thought, that she'd been stressed about work and bills, and her sister always brought out the worst in her, that she didn't mean it literally. It was just dark humor after a few glasses of wine. I asked her if she remembered exactly what she'd said. She hesitated, then claimed she'd said, "I wish he'd just crash on the couch for a while," and that I'd misheard. That's when I pulled out my phone and played the audio recording. Yes, I had a recording, not because I'd planned it. I'd been using a voice memo app on the drive to record gift ideas, trying to think of what else to get her for her birthday besides the cake. I'd never stopped the recording when I arrived at Emily's. Pure accident or fate or whatever you want to call it. Her exact words, in her exact voice. "I swear, Em, I almost wish he'd just crash the car. We could really use the insurance money." Emily's response, "Or at least a few months of peace and quiet." The laughter afterward. The color drained from Clara's face as she heard herself. She tried to grab my phone. I moved it away. She started crying harder, saying it was taken out of context. She didn't mean it. She'd never hurt me. I just asked her one question. "Would you have told me about this conversation if I hadn't overheard it myself?" Her silence was answer enough. Liam had discreetly disappeared when she arrived, but now came back into the room, awkwardly suggesting maybe we should continue this conversation another time, when emotions weren't so high. Clara ignored him, focused entirely on me. She launched into a desperate monologue, listing all the things she'd realized over the past 2 weeks. How much she depended on me, how the house felt empty without me, how she couldn't sleep in our bed alone, how she'd never meant to hurt me and would spend the rest of her life making it up to me if I'd just come home. It was the performance of a lifetime. Tears, trembling hands, voice breaking at all the right moments. 2 weeks ago, I might have been moved, might have believed her, but something had shifted inside me. I'd spent 14 days thinking, not just about what she'd said, but why she'd said it. The contempt that must have been building, the casual cruelty. The person who could laugh at the thought of my death was not the person I thought I'd married. Monday morning, day 18 of this new reality, I woke up to a strange sense of calm. Not happiness, certainly not joy, but a quiet acceptance. The emotional roller coaster of the past 2 weeks had left me exhausted, but also, strangely, grounded. I made coffee, sat on Liam's porch and watched the world go by. It was a mundane moment, a simple act, but it felt significant. I was still here, still breathing, still capable of finding a sliver of peace in the midst of chaos. Clara's 2-word text from the night before, "I'm sorry," lingered in my mind. It was a start, a crack in the wall she'd built between us. But was it enough? Could it ever be enough to erase the image of her laughter, the casual cruelty of her words? I didn't know. I decided to take action. Small, deliberate steps, not driven by anger or resentment, but by a need for clarity. I emailed Milton, my lawyer, and scheduled a meeting for later in the week. I wanted to fully understand my options, the legal and financial implications of separation, the possibility of reconciliation, however remote it seemed. I also did something I hadn't done in weeks. I went for a run. Not a frantic, angry run to escape my thoughts, but a slow, steady jog through the park. The crisp winter air filled my lungs, the rhythm of my feet on the path a soothing counterpoint to the turmoil in my head. It was a way of reconnecting with myself, of reminding myself that I was more than just Clara's husband. That evening, I had dinner with Liam. He'd been the silent, supportive presence throughout this whole ordeal, offering a safe haven without judgment or unsolicited advice. We talked about everything except Clara. Work, sports, his dating life, even his ridiculous obsession with competitive birdwatching. It was a welcome distraction, a reminder that life goes on, even when your world has been turned upside down. Tuesday brought an unexpected development. I received a letter in the mail, not from Clara, but from her sister, Emily. It was surprising. Not an apology exactly, but a hesitant attempt at understanding. She admitted that Clara had been going through a tough time, feeling overwhelmed by financial pressure and a sense of dissatisfaction with their life. She didn't excuse Clara's words, but she offered a glimpse into the context, the underlying anxieties that might have contributed to them. She even acknowledged that her own laughter was inappropriate and hurtful. The letter was a far cry from her earlier defensiveness. Felt genuine, vulnerable. It didn't change anything, but it added another layer to the puzzle. A reminder that people are complex, capable of both cruelty and kindness, often driven by insecurities we don't see. Wednesday was a blur of activity. I had a productive day at work, managing to focus on the Wilson project despite the emotional weight I was carrying. In the evening, I met with Milton. He patiently explained the legal process of separation and divorce, the division of assets, the potential for spousal support. He also stressed that separation didn't have to be a permanent end, that it could be a period of reflection and growth for both parties. His words resonated with me. I realized I wasn't ready to make a final decision. I needed more time, more space, to unravel the tangled emotions within me. I asked Milton to hold off on filing for divorce, at least for now. I wanted to explore the possibility of reconciliation, however slim it might be. That night, I did something I'd been avoiding for weeks. I went through our old photos. Not the recent ones, the posed snapshots of happy couples, but the earlier ones from the beginning of our relationship. College parties, road trips, goofy selfies, the day we got engaged. I saw two young people, full of hope and laughter, deeply in love. It was a bittersweet journey down memory lane, a reminder of what we'd once had, what we'd built together. Thursday, I finally responded to Clara's text. Not with anger or accusations, but with a simple question, "Can we talk?" She replied almost instantly, "Yes. When? Where?" We agreed to meet at a neutral location, a quiet cafe in the park, the following evening. The anticipation was agonizing. I spent the entire day alternating between hope and dread, between the desire to reconcile and the fear of further heartbreak. I talked to Liam, I talked to my therapist. Yes, I finally started therapy, best decision ever. I even talked to my mom. Everyone offered their own perspective, their own advice, but ultimately the decision was mine. Friday evening arrived, cold and clear. I arrived at the cafe early, found a quiet corner table, and ordered a coffee. Clara arrived a few minutes later, looking nervous and hesitant. She looked better than the last time I'd seen her, but still fragile, like a wounded bird. We started cautiously, talking about the weather, about work, about anything but the elephant in the room. Gradually, the conversation deepened. Clara spoke first, her voice trembling slightly. She apologized again, more sincerely this time, acknowledging the pain she'd caused, the trust she'd broken. She spoke about her insecurities, her fears, her growing dissatisfaction with their life. She admitted she'd been feeling lost and resentful, and that her words were a manifestation of that inner turmoil. I listened patiently, offering neither forgiveness nor condemnation. When she was finished, I spoke. I told her about my pain, my confusion, my struggle to reconcile the woman I thought I knew with the person who could say those words. I told her about my fears, my doubts, my uncertainty about the future. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I was honest and vulnerable, laying bare my raw emotions. We talked for hours, peeling back layers of hurt and resentment, exposing the vulnerabilities and insecurities that had been festering beneath the surface of our marriage. There were tears, there were moments of anger, but there was also honesty, a willingness to confront the ugly truths that had driven us apart. By the end of the evening, there were no easy answers, no simple solutions, but there was a glimmer of hope, a fragile understanding, a tentative willingness to try. We agreed to take things slowly, to work on ourselves individually and together, to seek professional help to navigate the complex terrain of reconciliation. We left the cafe not as a reunited couple, but as two people willing to explore the possibility of a future together, a future built on honesty, vulnerability, and a deeper understanding of ourselves and each other. The following weeks were a roller coaster. There were good days and bad days, moments of connection and moments of distance. We started couples therapy, which was both painful and illuminating. We learned to communicate more effectively, to express our needs and fears without resorting to blame or defensiveness. Clara made a conscious effort to address her financial irresponsibility, working with a counselor to develop a budget and manage her spending. I focused on my own emotional well-being, continuing individual therapy and finding healthy outlets for stress and anger. Slowly, gradually, tentatively, we began to rebuild. Not the marriage we had before, but something new, something stronger, something more authentic. We learned to appreciate each other again, not as perfect partners, but as flawed human beings capable of growth and change. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, moments when I doubted if reconciliation was even possible. But we persevered, driven by a stubborn hope and a willingness to fight for what we had. Months passed. The seasons changed. Winter gave way to spring, then summer. The snow that had blanketed the landscape on that fateful birthday weekend melted away, replaced by the vibrant colors of new life. And so did the ice around our hearts. We're not fully healed. The scars remain, a reminder of the pain we endured. But we've learned to live with them, to use them as a catalyst for growth and change. Our marriage is different now. It's not perfect, but it's real. It's built on honesty, vulnerability, and a deep, abiding love that has been tested and tempered by fire. I'm still learning to trust Clara again, and she's still working to earn that trust back. But we're both committed to the journey, to the ongoing process of rebuilding and rediscovering each other. Looking back, I realized that the snowstorm, the overheard words, the pain and chaos that followed, it was all a catalyst. A painful, necessary catalyst for change. It forced us to confront the ugly truths about ourselves and our relationship, to break down the walls we'd built between us, to rebuild on a foundation of honesty and vulnerability. It wasn't the ending I expected, but it's the ending I'm grateful for.